Chapter 1. Static and Silence. The Geiger counter's staccato clicks had become Maya Chen's lullaby over the past 3 years. Click, click, pause, click. Not too bad today. She adjusted her respirator and squinted through the cracked visor of her helmet at the skeletal remains of what had once been downtown Portland. Twisted metal reached toward a sky the color of old brass, while radioactive snow drifted between the ruins like cosmic dandruff. "Another gorgeous morning in paradise," she muttered, her voice echoing inside the helmet. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd been the lead systems engineer for the very nuclear plants that had turned the Pacific Northwest into this glowing wasteland. Hubris, her grandmother would have called it, the price of playing God. Maya's boots crunched through the debris as she made her way toward the emergency broadcast station hidden behind a false wall of rubble. 47 people, that's all that remained of Portland's 2 million souls scattered across a dozen makeshift bunkers. Worldwide, the numbers weren't much better. The Great Cascade, a chain reaction of nuclear disasters triggered by the solar storm of 2157, had reduced Earth's population from 8 billion to roughly 30 million in just 5 years. She paused at a faded street sign, barely readable, S.W. Yamhill Street. Below it, someone had spray-painted, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here," in fluorescent orange. Classy. Maya found herself chuckling, a sound that felt foreign after months of silence. Even gallows humor was better than no humor at all. The broadcast station's entrance was concealed behind a false wall of rubble. Maya punched in the access code with numbed fingers, and the hidden door hissed open. Inside, banks of salvaged equipment hummed with life, powered by a small fusion cell she jury-rigged from medical scanners. The irony again. Healing technology repurposed to keep their voice alive in a dying world. "Morning, beautiful," she said to the main console, patting its side like an old friend. The equipment responded with a cheerful beep. At least someone was happy to see her. Maya had been maintaining Earth's last long-range communication array for 2 years now, broadcasting daily status reports to, well, nobody. The other colonies had gone silent one by one. Mars Base Alpha, communications lost 18 months ago. Europa Station, last contact, 14 months. The generation ships bound for distant stars, even if they were still alive out there, they were beyond any realistic range. Still, she broadcast every day, because what else was there to do? She settled into the worn pilot's seat and began her daily ritual, fingers dancing across familiar controls. The signal boosters came online with a satisfying hum, power levels nominal, transmission array operational, audience 0. "This is Maya Chen, aboard Emergency Station Portland, day 1247 post-Cascade. Current survivor count in the Portland metropolitan area, 47 souls, all accounted for. Weather is irradiated, with a chance of fallout. In other news, I found a mostly intact vending machine yesterday. The Snickers bars were only slightly glowing." She paused, staring at the transmission readouts. Flat lines, empty space, the cosmic equivalent of shouting into a pillow. "You know what the funny thing is?" she continued, though no one was listening. "We spent centuries looking for signs of intelligent life in the universe. Turns out we should have been more worried about proving we deserve to be found." That's when the console exploded into activity. Every screen lit up like a Christmas tree. Proximity alarms shrieked. The communication array, which hadn't detected so much as a cosmic ray in months, suddenly registered massive electromagnetic signatures approaching from beyond the orbit of Neptune. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as she fought to make sense of the readings. 12 contacts, massive, accelerating toward Earth at a significant fraction of light speed. The energy signatures were impossible. Nothing humanity had ever built could generate that kind of power. "Oh, shit," she whispered. Then louder, Oh, shit! Her fingers flew across the controls, trying to get a clearer reading. The objects were decelerating now, shedding velocity at a rate that should have turned any human crew into jelly. Not human, then. Obviously not human. After all these years of silence, of calling into the void, something had finally answered. And Maya had the sinking feeling that humanity was about to discover it wasn't alone in the universe, at precisely the worst possible moment.
Chapter 2: The Mercy of Strangers. The alien ships hung in Earth's orbit like predatory birds, their hulls reflecting the sickly light of the radiation-choked atmosphere. Maya had managed to patch together visual feeds from the few remaining satellites, and what she saw made her blood run cold. Each vessel was the size of Manhattan, their surfaces covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. They weren't just ships, they were works of art, terrible and beautiful in equal measure. "Maya!" The voice crackled through her communicator, tinged with static and barely controlled panic. It was Jorge Santos, the de facto leader of their little band of survivors. "Please tell me you're seeing this! Please tell me our sensors are malfunctioning!" "I'm seeing it," Maya replied, never taking her eyes off the screens. 12 ships, each approximately 8 kilometers long, maintaining geosynchronous orbit. They're not broadcasting on any frequency I can detect, but they're definitely scanning us. "Scanning us for what?" Maya adjusted the sensor array, trying to get more detailed readings. The aliens' technology was so advanced that their scanning beams barely registered on her equipment, like trying to detect sunlight with a candle. "I don't know, but Jorge, the energy readings I'm getting suggest they could glass the entire planet without breaking a sweat." A long silence stretched across the communication channel. Finally, Jorge's voice returned, smaller now. "How long do we have?" Before Maya could answer, every screen in the broadcast station went white. Then, slowly, an image resolved. A face, if you could call it that. The being had features that were almost human, but not quite. Too symmetrical. Eyes that held depths Maya couldn't fathom. When it spoke, the words bypassed her ears entirely and formed directly in her mind. "Greetings, children of Earth." Maya's hand instinctively reached for the transmission controls, but found she couldn't move. Not paralyzed, simply held, gently but firmly, by a force she couldn't comprehend. "I am Vexhai, of the Confederated Worlds, speaking for the Mercy Fleet, currently in orbit around your world. We have been monitoring your broadcasts, Maya Chen, your daily reports, your humor in the face of extinction." The voice carried notes of something that might have been sadness, if aliens could feel such things. "We have come to offer you peace." "Peace?" Maya found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "Your species stands at the threshold of extinction. Your world is dying. Your people suffer in the ruins of their own making. We have seen this pattern before on 100 worlds across the galaxy. The same cycle. Intelligence emerges, grows, reaches for the stars, and then destroys itself in the reaching." Images flashed through Maya's mind, other worlds, other species, civilizations that had risen and fallen, leaving behind only radioactive graves and silent monuments to their hubris.
"But you are not yet gone. A few tens of millions remain. This is why we have come, to offer the mercy we could not give to others who passed beyond our help. Maya felt ice forming in her stomach. What kind of mercy? The kind we should have offered Earth 50 years ago, before your suffering became so great. A quick end, painless. You will sleep, and your pain will be over. Your world will heal, and perhaps in 1,000,000 years, new life will emerge to learn from your remains. You're talking about genocide. We are talking about mercy. We have watched your species for decades, Maya Chen. We have seen your wars, your hatred, your willingness to poison your own home rather than share it. We have seen the cruelty humans inflict upon each other, the way you consume everything in your path like a cancer. The alien's mental voice grew gentle, almost tender. But we have also seen your art, your music, your capacity for love and sacrifice. This is why we hesitate. This is why we offer you a choice that we have offered no other dying species. Maya's heart hammered, so hard she could hear it echoing in her helmet. What kind of choice? Prove to us that humanity deserves to survive. You have 72 hours to broadcast a signal, one signal that demonstrates your species' worthiness to continue existing. Show us something that makes the universe better for having humans in it. If you succeed, we will heal your world and guide your species back from the brink of extinction. If you fail, the images in Maya's mind shifted. Earth, green and blue and alive again. Then Earth, dark and silent, its surface swept clean. We will grant you the mercy of a quick end. 72 hours, Maya Chen. Use them wisely. The presence in her mind withdrew, and suddenly Maya could move again. The screens flickered back to normal readings, showing the alien ships maintaining their ominous orbit. But now there was a countdown timer floating in the corner of each display. 71, 59, 47, 71, 59, 46, 71, 59, 45. Maya stared at the numbers, her mind reeling. 72 hours to prove humanity was worth saving. How do you condense the worth of an entire species into a single broadcast? How do you argue for the life of 8 billion souls when you only have 30 million left to speak for them? She reached for her communicator with trembling hands. Jorge, we need to talk, all of us, right now. Maya, what's happening? Our instruments are going crazy, and people are reporting some kind of voice in their heads. Jorge, Maya's voice cut through his babbling like a knife. Get everyone to the main shelter. Everyone. I'll explain when I get there, but right now, we need to figure out how to save the human race. The timer kept counting down.
Chapter 3. What Makes Us Human. The main shelter had been built in the sub-basement of Portland General Hospital, deep enough to provide protection from the worst of the radiation. Maya arrived to find all 46 other survivors crammed into the space that had once been the hospital's emergency power center. They sat on crates, leaned against walls, or simply stood wherever they could find room. The air was thick with tension and barely suppressed panic. Jorge Santos stood at the front of the group, his weathered face grim. At 63, he was one of the oldest survivors, old enough to remember what the world had been like before the cascade. Beside him sat Dr. Sarah Kim, whose medical skills had kept them all alive through the worst of the radiation sickness. To her left, Thomas Mueller, the former philosophy professor who'd become their unofficial counselor, helping people cope with the reality of humanity's twilight. And then there were the others, mechanics and teachers, programmers and artists, children and grandparents. The random lottery of survival had left them with a cross-section of humanity that would have made a sociologist weep, if there had been any sociologists left to do the weeping. "All right, Maya," Jorge said, his voice carrying the weight of command that had settled on his shoulders over the past 3 years. "Tell us what we're dealing with." Maya took a deep breath and launched into her explanation. The alien ships, the offer of mercy, the ultimatum. As she spoke, she watched the faces around her cycle through disbelief, fear, anger, and finally a kind of numb acceptance that she recognized from the early days after the cascade. "So let me get this straight," said Emma Rodriguez, a former advertising executive whose 8-year-old daughter clutched at her leg. "These aliens want to kill us all, but they'll let us live if we can, impress them? Convince them we're worth keeping around like some kind of endangered species?" "That's about the size of it," replied Maya. "Bullshit." The voice belonged to Marcus Wright, a grizzled former Marine, whose prosthetic leg clicked against the concrete floor as he shifted his weight. "This is psychological warfare, pure and simple. They want us to surrender, to go quietly. I say we fight." "With what?" Dr. Kim's voice was sharp with exhaustion. "Marcus, we've got 47 people, most of whom can barely walk from radiation exposure. They've got 12 ships the size of cities. What exactly do you propose we fight them with?" "Our humanity," said Thomas Mueller quietly. The former professor's words carried more weight than his slight frame would suggest. "That's what this is really about, isn't it? They're not just judging our worthiness to survive. They're judging what it means to be human." Maya nodded. "That's how I read it too. But the question is, what do we show them? What single broadcast could possibly represent all of humanity?" The debate that followed was unlike anything Maya had ever witnessed. 47 people arguing not for their lives, but for the very soul of their species. Some wanted to showcase humanity's greatest achievements, Einstein's theories, Beethoven's symphonies, the works of Shakespeare. Others argued for showing human resilience and courage in the face of adversity. "What about our mistakes?" asked Dr. Kim suddenly. "What if honesty is what they're looking for? We could show them what we did wrong, how we learn from it, prove that we're capable of growth. Or we could show them our capacity for love," suggested Maria Santos, Jorge's wife. She gestured toward the children in the group. "Show them what we're willing to die for."
The arguments continued for hours, growing more heated as exhaustion and stress took their toll. Maya found herself thinking about the aliens' words, about the 100 dead civilizations they claimed to have witnessed. What had those other species shown them? What had they failed to demonstrate that led to their extinction? "Stop!" she said suddenly, cutting through the debate. "Just stop!" The shelter fell silent. Maya stood up, pacing to the center of the room. An idea was forming in her mind. Crazy, probably impossible, but maybe brilliant. "We're approaching this all wrong," she said. "We keep talking about showing them our best qualities, our greatest achievements. But that's not what makes us human." "What do you mean?" Jorge asked. Maya gestured around the shelter, at the mismatched group of survivors huddled in their underground refuge. "Look at us. We're not heroes. We're not the best humanity has to offer. We're scared, tired, irradiated refugees clinging to life in a hole in the ground, and yet—" She paused, seeing the glimmer of understanding in Thomas's eyes. "And yet we're still here, still fighting, still caring for each other." "Exactly. The aliens talked about watching our species for decades. They've seen our wars, our hatred, our capacity for destruction, but they've also seen our art, our love, our willingness to sacrifice for each other. What they haven't seen is what happens when we have nothing left to lose except each other." Maya's heart was racing now, the idea taking shape. We don't show them a recording of our greatest hits. We don't try to impress them with our achievements. We show them us. Right here, right now. 47 people in a radiation shelter, facing extinction, and still choosing to be human. A live broadcast, breathed Sarah Kim. 72 hours of live, unfiltered humanity. No scripts, no preparation, just us, being ourselves. Fighting, laughing, crying, hoping, everything that makes us human, good and bad. Marcus snorted. That's your plan? Show them our dirty laundry? I'm showing them our truth, Maya replied. The aliens said they've seen this pattern before. Species that destroy themselves in their reach for greatness. But maybe what they haven't seen is a species that can find grace in its own destruction, beauty in its own fragility. The shelter was quiet for a long moment. Then Emma Rodriguez spoke up, her daughter still clinging to her leg. What if they don't like what they see? Maya met her eyes steadily. Then we die as ourselves. Isn't that better than dying as a lie? Jorge stood up slowly, his joints creaking in the silence. All in favor. One by one, 47 hands rose into the stale air of the shelter.
Chapter 4. The Broadcast. Maya had never realized how loud humans could be until she tried to broadcast their conversations to space. The main shelter had been transformed into a makeshift studio, with cameras and microphones positioned to capture every corner of their underground world. She'd rigged the system to stream continuously on every frequency she could manage, ensuring that the alien ships couldn't miss their transmission. Hour 1 of the broadcast. Chaos. "Turn that damn camera off!" Marcus Wright roared, his face flushed with embarrassment as he struggled to change his radiation-soaked bandages. "This is private." "Nothing's private anymore," Maya called back from her control station. "That's the point." Dr. Kim was examining young Sofia Rodriguez's latest blood work, her face creased with concern. The little girl's white cell count was dropping again, and they all knew what that meant. But instead of hiding this grim reality from the cameras, Maya made sure it was front and center. The aliens wanted to see humanity? They'd see humanity facing its mortality with whatever grace it could muster. "I don't understand why my numbers are bad," Sophia said, her 8-year-old voice carrying clearly through the broadcast. Emma's mother's eyes filled with tears, but she kept her voice steady. "Sometimes our bodies get tired, Mija. Dr. Kim is helping us understand why." "Like how Grandpa got tired?" "Yes, like Grandpa." Maya felt her throat tighten. Sophia's grandfather had died 6 months ago, another casualty of the radiation that continued to claim them one by one. But watching Emma hold her daughter, seeing the fierce love in her eyes even as her heart broke, if the aliens couldn't understand that, then maybe they didn't deserve to judge humanity at all.
Hour 8. Unexpected Beauty. Thomas Mueller had found his old guitar somewhere in the ruins and was tuning it with infinite patience. The strings were corroded, several of them improvised from spare wire. But when he finally began to play, the music filled the shelter with something approaching magic. He started with Blowin' in the Wind, Dylan's ancient protest song taking on new meaning in their underground world. Then others joined in, voices cracking with emotion, harmonizing imperfectly but with absolute sincerity. Maria Santos contributed a Spanish lullaby her grandmother had taught her. Marcus, despite his earlier protests, found himself humming along to a half-remembered military cadence. Maya watched the power meters spike as their transmission carried this impromptu concert across the solar system. Somewhere above them, Alien minds were processing this raw human music, trying to decode what it meant. She hoped they could hear the defiance in it, the refusal to go quietly into extinction. Hour 16. The fight. It started over food rationing. It always did. Tempers frayed by exhaustion and fear finally boiled over when someone accused Marcus of taking more than his share of the synthesized protein bars. "I'm twice the size of half you people. I need more calories to function." "We all need calories," Jorge replied firmly, "and we all get the same ration." The argument escalated quickly, voices rising, accusations flying. Maya found herself caught between her duty to broadcast and her instinct to protect their privacy. But then she remembered the aliens' words about humanity's capacity for hatred and conflict, and she kept the cameras rolling. Because what happened next was pure human. Dr. Kim stepped between the arguing men, her small frame dwarfed by their anger. "Stop," she said quietly. "Just stop." She reached into her medical bag and pulled out her own ration, a full day's worth of food. "Marcus, take this. You're right that you need more calories. You're also doing twice the physical labor of anyone else here." "Sarah, no," Marcus protested. "I can't." "Yes, you can, because tomorrow, when I'm weak from hunger, you'll make sure I get extra water. Next week, when Jorge's joints are acting up, you'll carry his pack. That's what we do. That's who we are." The argument deflated like a punctured balloon. Marcus accepted the food with tears in his eyes, and the group settled back into their routine. But Maya caught something else on the monitors, a brief spike in the alien scanning beams. They were paying attention.
Hour 24. The children. Sofia Rodriguez was not the only child in their group, but she had become their unofficial mascot. At 8 years old, she possessed the kind of unfiltered curiosity that could make adults remember why life was worth living. As the broadcast entered its second day, she appointed herself as tour guide for their alien audience. "This is my mom," she said, dragging Emma toward one of the cameras. "She used to sell things before the bad air came. Now she helps Mr. Jorge make decisions. She's really good at math." "Sophia, honey, I don't think," Emma began. "And this is Dr. Kim. She makes people feel better. She gave me this shot yesterday, and it hardly hurt at all. Do aliens get sick? Do you have doctors?" Maya found herself smiling despite everything. Sophia was treating their potential executioners like pen pals, assuming they could be reasoned with, befriended, understood. It was naive, innocent, and absolutely human. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Thomas asked gently, his guitar still in his hands. Sophia considered this seriously. "I want to fix the sky," she said finally. "Make it blue again, like in the old pictures. And I want to make the plants grow back. Mom says there used to be trees everywhere, tall as buildings." The shelter fell silent. Even the ever-present hum of the life support system seemed to quiet. Here was their future, if they had one, speaking with the clarity that only children possessed. "Do you think the sky people will help us fix things?" Sophia asked, looking directly into the nearest camera. "We could be friends. I know lots of games." Maya found herself smiling despite everything. If the aliens couldn't see the worth in that innocent hope, then they weren't the enlightened beings they claimed to be.
Hour 48. The breaking point. Maya had been awake for over 2 days straight, surviving on stimulants and sheer determination. The broadcast was taking its toll on everyone, the constant awareness of being watched, judged, weighed in the balance. Tempers were fraying, exhaustion making people say things they didn't mean. That's when Dr. Kim collapsed. She'd been pushing herself harder than anyone, trying to manage everyone's medical needs while dealing with her own radiation sickness. Maya watched in horror as the doctor simply crumpled while checking on Marcus's infected leg wound, her body finally giving out. "Sarah!" Jorge was at her side in seconds, checking her pulse. "Maya, shut off the cameras." "No." The voice was weak but firm. Dr. Kim's eyes fluttered open. "Leave them on." "Sarah, you need rest." "I need them to see. This is what courage looks like. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to keep going despite it." She looked directly into the nearest camera, her face pale but determined. "I'm dying," she said simply. "The radiation damage to my cellular structure is irreversible. I have maybe 3 weeks left, probably less. But right now, in this moment, I'm still here, still helping, still choosing to care for these people even though I'll never see them grow old." Maya felt her heart breaking and soaring simultaneously. This was what made humans worth saving. Not their achievements or their potential, but their willingness to love and serve and sacrifice even in the face of certain death. "If you're listening up there," Dr. Kim continued, her voice growing stronger, "if you're trying to decide whether we deserve to live, this is your answer. We don't deserve anything. None of us do. Worthiness isn't the point. The point is that we're here, we're alive, and we choose to make that mean something."
Hour 67. The Miracle. Maya was running on fumes and prayer when the impossible happened. The alien ships, which had maintained a perfect synchronous orbit for 3 days, suddenly began moving. But instead of positioning themselves for bombardment, they were descending? "Maya!" Jorge's voice crackled through the comm system. "Are you seeing this?" She was. The massive vessels were entering Earth's atmosphere with impossible grace, their hulls beginning to glow with controlled energy. But instead of the harsh light of weapons, this was something else. Something that made Maya's radiation detectors start clicking frantically. They're broadcasting something," she breathed, her fingers flying over the controls. "Some kind of energy pattern? It's interacting with the radiation in our atmosphere." Through the cameras positioned at the shelter's surface entrance, Maya watched in amazement as the perpetual orange haze that had choked their sky for 5 years began to clear. The energy beams from the alien ships were neutralizing the radiation, breaking down the isotopes that had turned their world into a wasteland. "Sophia!" Emma's voice was filled with wonder. "Come look at this." The little girl pressed her face to the camera's viewfinder, gasping as she saw something that had been absent from her world for her entire lifetime. Actual stars, twinkling in a sky that was slowly turning from orange to purple to black. "They're so beautiful. Are those the same stars my great-grandmother used to see?" "The very same ones," Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion.
Hour 72. The Choice. As the countdown timer reached its final minutes, Maya found herself back at her control station, surrounded by her fellow survivors. The alien ships continued their work, methodically cleansing decades of contamination from Earth's atmosphere and soil. The Geiger counters that had been their constant companions for years were finally, blessedly, silent. The view screen flickered, and once again Vexai's alien features filled the display. But this time, the mental voice that touched Maya's consciousness carried notes of something that might have been respect. "You have surprised us, children of Earth." Maya found her voice. "How so?" "In 70 decades of observation, we have watched your species through its darkest hours. We have seen you at war, seen you consume your world's resources, seen you poison your own home. When we arrived, we expected to find either proud defiance or pathetic surrender. We did not expect to find this." The alien's image shifted, showing scenes from their broadcast, Dr. Kim's sacrifice, Sophia's innocent hope, Marcus's gruff tenderness, the impromptu concert, the fights and reconciliations, and small acts of love that had filled their underground world.
You have shown us something we have not seen before in a dying species. You have shown us grace. Maya felt tears streaming down her face. Does that mean? It means you have chosen to face extinction not with hatred or despair, but with love for each other. You have proven that even in your species' darkest hour, you remain capable of growth, of sacrifice, of hope. The view screen shifted again, showing Earth from orbit. But instead of the dead, poisoned world that had been just hours before, Maya saw blue oceans, white clouds, and the faint green glow of returning life. We will not grant you mercy through death, Maya Chen. We will grant you mercy through life. Your world will heal. Your people will endure. But more than that, you will join us among the stars as equals. You have earned that right. As the transmission ended, and the Avian ships began their ascent back to orbit, Maya looked around at her companions, her family, and felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope for tomorrow. Outside, for the first time in half a decade, birds were beginning to sing.
Epilogue. New Beginnings. 6 months later. Maya stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed orbital platform, watching as the last of the atmospheric processors completed their work. Earth turned slowly beneath her feet, blue and green and gloriously alive. The scars of humanity's near extinction were still visible, dead cities that would take decades to reclaim, deserts where forests had once grown. But life was returning with astonishing speed. Remarkable, isn't it? The voice belonged to Vex High, who had become humanity's primary liaison with the Confederated Worlds. The alien had taken to appearing in a more human-like form for these conversations, though Maya suspected this was more for her comfort than any necessity. "It's everything we lost," Maya replied. "Everything we thought we'd never see again. And everything you never imagined you might become." It was true. In the 6 months since the Mercy Fleet had arrived, humanity had transformed in ways that went beyond planetary restoration. The alien technology freely shared with them had not just healed their world, it had opened doorways to possibilities they never dreamed of. Medical advances that could cure the radiation damage, energy systems that could power civilizations without destroying them, transportation methods that could carry humans to the stars. But more than that, the experience of being judged and found worthy had changed something fundamental in the human psyche. The petty divisions that had plagued their species for millennia seemed somehow smaller, less important when viewed against the backdrop of their shared survival. "I've been thinking about what you said, about the 100 worlds you've watched die. What made us different?" Vex High was quiet for a long moment, their alien features thoughtful. "Most species, when faced with extinction, either rage against the dying of the light or surrender to it entirely. You did neither. You chose to celebrate the light while you had it." Through the observation deck's transparent walls, Maya could see the first of the new generation ships under construction, vessels that would carry human volunteers to join the Confederated World's exploration of the galaxy. But unlike the desperate evacuation attempts of their past, these would be journeys of choice, of hope, of expansion rather than escape. Sophia wants to be on the first ship to Alpha Centauri. She says she wants to see if alien trees are as tall as Earth trees used to be.
"And what do you want, Maya Chen?" Maya considered the question. She could join the starfarers, explore worlds beyond imagination. She could stay on Earth and help rebuild their civilization. She could dedicate herself to the new technologies, the art and science and philosophy that would emerge from humanity's partnership with alien intelligence. "I want to keep broadcasting," she said finally. "There are other worlds out there, other species facing the same choice we faced. Maybe they need to hear our story. Maybe they need to know that it's possible to find grace even in the darkness." Vex High's alien features shifted into what Maya had learned to recognize as a smile. "I believe the Confederated Worlds would very much like to sponsor such a program. After all, you humans have proven quite gifted at, what is your phrase? Getting people to listen." Below them, Earth continued its eternal rotation, blue and beautiful and alive with possibility. And somewhere in the void between stars, Maya's signal carried outward, not a distress call this time, but a message of hope. This is Maya Chen, broadcasting from humanity's new beginning. We are still here. We are still growing. We are still choosing to be human. And the universe is listening.